As Yogi Berra said, it's deja vu all over again. And last time we were here about a month and a half, 2 months ago, Carol got sick, and she's well tonight, and I'm sick. But, you know, this is what happens. Everything comes around. But I went to see Carol and putting it together. You must go and see her. She's brilliant. You know, Carol is one of my idols, one of the women in comedy that I have always respected and admired and laughed at all of these years. Please help me welcome one of the great comedians, Carol Burnett. Wonderful.
Oh.
I just said to Carol, they love you, I can't talk.
Well, I tell you, if at first you don't succeed, thank you very much.
You're a trooper, baby. But I just said to Carol, you're also a wonderful dramatic actress. I mean, one of my favorite things you've ever done is Pete and Tilly.
Oh my gosh.
Loved that movie.
Thank you.
That was a great, great thing. Do you like to do drama?
Yeah, I prefer comedy because I like to hear the response, you know, and in drama you hope you don't hear it, so, you know. But I like it. You know, they tend to pigeonhole in America. They pigeonhole us. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like you're either a comic or you're a straight act or you're a singer. Or one of the funniest people I've ever worked with in my life is Steve Lawrence. He was on our show so many times, and he has always been pigeonholed as a saloon singer.
Yeah.
And yet, when he was on our show, many times if we ran long or something like that, he would say, "Cut my song, I want to do the sketches."
Really?
And he always came up with brilliant, wonderful stuff to do, you know. And I guess, I don't know why I'm getting off on this tack, but in Britain, in England, you know, everybody's well-rounded and they don't think anything about it, that somebody can, you know.
They have more respect for actors there, I think, than we do in this country.
And you know, they can do comedy, drama, sing, dance,
they
whatever.
Do everything. Laurence Olivier sang in a couple of films.
Yeah.
Don't you think that has a lot to do with the way you look also in this country? I mean, they pigeonhole you according to how you look.
I'm afraid so.
Why? I mean, well, you have a comedic way about you, and, you know, that's, I guess you can't get around that. But have you ever been cast as a leading lady, as a Grace Kelly type?
Joy, let me tell you, when I was a little girl, my grandmother used to take me to movies in Hollywood. We lived in Hollywood, a block north of Hollywood Boulevard, and we would see 8 movies a week. 8. 4 double features. She'd even take me out of school to go see movies, you know.
Who was your favorite actress at that time?
I loved Linda Darnell, Betty Grable, Lana Turner, those people. Okay. So then I would come home, and I'd get with my girlfriend, Isla Mae, and we would play the movies. And I would be Betty Grable. I'd make her be June Haver, and
of course.
And my cousin, we would play Tarzan and Jane, but she was beautiful, so I was Tarzan. But so I would do all of that. Now, I would pretend that I could be Lana Turner, Joan Crawford, Betty Davis, this, that. Okay, I get the variety show. And I got to be Grace Kelly.
Yes,
if I wanted to be Grace Kelly, I'd say, I want to be Grace Kelly next week. And they would write a sketch for me. And Vivian Lee and Gone with the Wind and all of that. So I got
they're mumbling because that was your greatest sketch. I mean, besides, you know, Mama and stuff. The Gone with the Wind is the most memorable thing, I think, in all of those years. Do you agree?
Oh, well, yes. I think it certainly was, and I have to give credit where it is due. It's because of that scene coming out with the curtain rod, and that was our costume designer, Bob Mackey.
He inspired that.
Totally.
He thought of it.
That was Bob. In fact, Bob did all the costumes for our show. He designed 50 costumes a week.
Wow.
He did everything you ever saw on our show. Dancers, singers, guest stars, Harvey, Vicki, Tim, Lyle, me, in every sketch, designed the wigs, the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
Yet people think that he just did the opening dresses.
Beautiful gowns, yeah.
No. And so I remember that Wednesday was always costume fittings, and the writers for the Gone with the Wind sketch, I mean, it was a brilliantly written parody. There's no question about it. The whole thing was terrific. And they had written that as Starlet, not Scarlet, but Starlet. She ripped the curtains down from the window and said, I'm going to make me a dress. And she runs up, and then they had written that I come down with it just, the draperies just hanging, which would have been funny enough. Anyway, I walked into costume fittings that Wednesday morning, and Bob said, I have an idea. I said, what? And he came out with the rod. I fell on the floor, and that was, I guess, probably one of the best sight gags ever.
Yes.
Ever on television, and that was Bob Mackey.
But you had also when you played Mrs. Wiggins,
yes.
you were funny too.
Yeah.
I mean, just the way you walked, and
that was Bob.
A lot of the sight things were Bob's
Well,
ideas?
I'll tell you what happened there was he put me in this funny blouse with the push-up bra and everything, and then he had this tight black skirt that was off the rack or that had been worn a million times, and I put it on, and it was very tight around here, but it was bagging in the rear end. And I said, Bob, I think, because I have a flat behind, I said, I think you're going to have to take that in. And he said, just stick your rear end out. And I'll show you. This is what happened. It was flat, and then he said, stick your rear end, and that's how. No, we called it the Wiggins walk. That's how that happened, because that was the only way I could walk in that skirt.
So a lot of the comedic moments are accidents almost.
Totally. I don't know about you. I work, I have to know what I'm going to look like. And then that helps me develop the character. I work from the outside in.
Like Olivier, again, he did that.
Well, that's why I do
That's
it.
the reason. See? You're a
I
British
know
actress.
he had to know. Didn't he have to know what his nose would be like or something?
Probably,
He
yeah.
would put a bump on his nose or widen it or something. But it always helped me when I went into costumes, or I would talk to Bob and I'd say, "How do you see this character? Is she blonde? Is she this or that?" And once I got what she was going to look like, it gave me a voice and a walk and a way to behave.
And then you just went with it.
Yeah.
But you have your own special thing. I mean, why is it that, Ingrid Bergman, for instance, one of our greatest actresses, couldn't do that, do you think?
I couldn't do what?
What you did. What you did.
Well, I don't think I could do what Ingrid Bergman did.
No,
I
but
mean,
I'm saying it's interesting to me, just the way comedy gets created,
Yeah,
and how
yeah.
some people can do it and some people can't.
Yeah, yeah.
So what else was there besides, the costume, do you think, that was going on in your head?
That's an interesting, I don't know.
Is it just a natural talent, do you think, that you have?
I think it's a natural, well, it's something that whatever it is, it's inside of us that, I don't know, made us the kind of hairpins that we are. That's a
And you
tough
saw
one.
the world in a certain skewed way, I guess.
I guess so, yeah.
Now, do you think that when you were a kid you saw the world like that, or only as a grown-up?
Wow, you're, well, doctor. Oh, excuse me.
Well, because I'll share with you. Because when I was a child, I was always clowning around as a kid. I was a funny kid. They used to encourage me to sing and dance and tell jokes, and I'd beg them to go to sleep, and they'd say, "No, come on, do one more." And
Yeah, right.
so I became a big ham at a very young age. And so I was just wondering if you were like that. Were you that kind of kid? No.
No.
What kind of kid were you?
Very quiet.
Yeah.
I was very quiet. But when I was alone, I'd get in front of the mirror and pretend to be Betty Grable. But my mother was very beautiful. My grandmother was a nut. I was raised by both of them. And I don't know, I was kind of afraid to come out because they might say, they might piss on my parade, It's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I lived with my grandmother in one room off of Hollywood Boulevard, and there was a window that I used to sit, the couch was there, and there was a window that butted up against the apartment building next door. And when nobody was around, I would pretend to be a radio show. And then I would do things like, and now, ladies and gentlemen, we have this wonderful young new singer with us this afternoon, and what's your name? Lily Lamont. All right, Lily, what are you going to sing for us without benefit of accompaniment? Well, I thought I would sing, When I'm Calling You. Okay, sing When I'm Calling You. And I would do that, and then I would yell out and be this radio show. And then one time, some man from the next apartment building yelled, "Turn that goddamn thing off!" And I went, "Hot damn!"
You thought you were...
Whoa!
You know, I've been to Los Angeles a few times, and I have a vision of you being in this one room on Hollywood Boulevard with all of this glamour going on around you. It must have been quite a weird experience for a kid growing up with a grandma in one room.
I loved it. We would go down to the boulevard, when there would be premieres, and we would hang over the ropes to see the movie stars coming, by in the limos and everything. My grandmother was such a character. She would say, "Let us through. I have a heart condition," so we could get in the front of the line. And I'll never forget. They would drive up, and I saw Lana Turner and Tyrone Power and all of these, really heavy hitters driving by. But my favorite, I loved Linda Darnell. This was a beautiful, beautiful woman. And I think I loved her because she was born in Texas, which I was. And she got out of the car coming to this premiere, and she got out and she was walking by the ropes. And my grandmother grabbed her by the arm. I'm about 7 or 8 years old. And she said, Linda, come here. And Linda Darnell said, yes. And she said, "Give this little girl your autograph. She just loves you." And she was so sweet. And she looked down at me and said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Carol." And she wrote, she wrote her name down, and I was looking up at her, and there's the most gorgeous creature I ever saw in my life. And then I was staring up, and I noticed that her nostrils weren't the same shape.
It's called a rhinoplasty.
Look at somebody. I mean, your face is different, so they weren't exactly, they didn't match. Nobody's nostrils match. That's
Not in Hollywood.
No. That's true. But that's my impression. Look up. See,
yours
they don't
match.
No,
Your right one is a little bigger. But were there any other movie stars you met when you were a kid? And you were in the middle of that?
My mother dated George Montgomery at one time.
George who?
Montgomery.
Oh, George Montgomery.
Yeah, he was married to Dinah Shore. At one time.
Wasn't he? He was not Tarzan.
No.
Who am I thinking of?
Johnny Weissmuller?
Yeah, I guess so.
No.
They're very similar to me. I don't know. So, what was I going to say to you? I had a thought while you were speaking about being in Hollywood and everything. How did you, I know. So you thought like if you performed in front of your family that they would say, "Oh, come on, stop showing off, you're making a fool of yourself."
Or whatever.
And
my mother, I drew. I would always draw. I thought at one time I would be a cartoonist and have my own comic strip. And that's kind of what I thought I would do. And then I wrote, and my mom said, "Be a journalist. That would be great. You can always, write and be a journalist and so forth." So that's kind of what I thought I was going to do. I was editor of my high school paper, Hollywood High, and junior high school paper. And then I went to UCLA thinking I would major in journalism, and they didn't have a school of journalism to major in. And so I went to theater arts English to major in the playwriting courses, and then I started to take the acting courses, and it kind of happened. But I didn't tell my mother or my grandmother that I was majoring in theater arts because I didn't want them to know.
And yet you did take a big leap. I read in your book, you took a big leap. You came to New York at a very young age and tried to break into showbiz. Where did you get the balls for that?
When I was on campus at UCLA, I had nener sung or anything, except in the kitchen with my mother playing the ukulele, and my grandmother would sing and so forth. And so a guy on campus came up to me and said, "Can you carry a tune?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, we're doing this thing, musical comedy workshop." and would you be one of the nurses in a South Pacific scene, wash that man right out of my hair. I said, sure. And I was so loud that they took me out of it. And he said, would you be in a scene with me from Guys and Dolls? And I sang Adelaide's Lament. And I had the nerve because she has a cold in that song. So I didn't have to sound good, you know. And so I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to be Ethel Merman and Mary Martin when I grow up. And so secretly, I was taking these classes, and we had this show to do for our finals, and we did them at a party in San Diego for our professor. And so there were some people at this party. It was a black tie affair, and this man and his wife came up after I had done a scene, and he said, that was very good. And I said, thank you very much. And here I'm piling hors d'oeuvres in my purse to take home to my grandmother, and I thought I was busted. And he said, what do you want to do with your life? I said, well, I'd love to go to New York and, you know, try to be in a Broadway musical. He said, why don't you go? Well, we had no money. We were on relief and all of that. And I said, I don't have the money. He said, I'll give you the money to go to New York.
Stranger.
A stranger, perfect stranger. And his wife said, no, he means it. And I said, whoa. And so he said, you be in my office a week from Monday, and I will give you the money so you can go to New York. So, went to his office. There he was.
You didn't think maybe he was a child molester or something?
It would never occur to me. No, not at all. And I went into his office, and he was there. I remember the carpet looked like it was a vicuna. I mean, it was so gorgeous. And I walked into his office. The desk was way at the other end. He was sitting there, and he said, okay, I'm going to give you the money to go to New York, and here are the stipulations. You must pay, it's a loan, you must pay it back in 5 years to the day, no interest, if you are successful. Number 2, if you're successful in your chosen field, you must help other people out the way I've helped you. And number 3, you must never reveal my name.
Oh, that's a beautiful story.
And
my God,
he wrote out a check for $1,000,
which was a lot of money. What year was this?
1954. I was a sophomore at college, and I'd never seen so many zeros in my life. And in fact, I had to cash the check there in order to get the gas money to go back to LA. And I had all this money, and I showed it to my grandmother. She said, what is all of this, you know? I said, I'm going to New York. So that gave me the balls.
What did she say?
What do you mean you're going to New York? Look, you know what we can do with all this money? We can pay, our rent was $30 a month.
Yeah.
You know, so that would...
But you said, I'm taking the money.
I had to, because that's what...
You made the deal.
Yeah.
What about your mom? What did she think of that?
My mother was an alcoholic, and so she was really pretty bad at that time. And so when I told her I was going to go, she said, "Go, kid, go, and good luck." You know.
Do you think if she was sober, she would have said that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. And so I came here, and I didn't know anybody, and I got on a plane. I didn't even know where I was going to stay. I had not thought that far ahead at all. And on the plane, I read the New Yorker, and they said something about the Algonquin Hotel, where the round table was. I thought, oh, I'll go there. I got off the plane, took my cardboard suitcase from JCPenney's and went to the Algonquin, and it was $9 a day. You know, I mean, my God.
Was that a lot?
A lot.
That was a lot.
Our rent was $1 a day, so $9 you know. And so I had one phone number in my wallet, and it was from a girl who was a senior at UCLA who had since come to New York. And I didn't know her that well, but I called, and she was living at a place called the Rehearsal Club. And that was what Stage Door was written about. I don't know how many of you know that play, but it was
like where the Barbizon Hotel is.
Yeah, kind of like that, only it was even cheaper. And she said, what are you doing, you know, paying that kind of money? Get up here. And she got me into the Rehearsal Club, which was a boarding house for young ladies interested in the theater, all very on the up and up, for $18 a week, room and board. And I moved in there. And it was
Were you scared? You felt good? You were
I felt
confident?
good.
You
Yeah,
were fine?
I felt really good because I moved into one room with 4 other women, 4 other young girls,
Yeah.
and one closet, so I felt right at home in that one room.
Right.
Yeah. And
Did you miss your grandma?
Yeah.
You missed her.
I missed her. I missed everybody. I missed my mother, my
Yeah,
kid sister,
yeah,
and
yeah.
all. But it was an exciting time, and it was really out of a Mickey and Judy movie. And
then what happened to you then in
Well,
1950s?
I made the rounds, and I got a part-time job at Susan Palmer's Tea Room on 49th Street checking hats. It's a ladies' tea room, which shows you how bright I was. You know, like ladies check your hats. And so I kept trying to get an agent, and then, you know, you go to an agent and they say, let us know when you're in something.
Yeah.
How do you get in something unless you have an agent? This guy said, go put on your own show. I said, okay. So I went back to the rehearsal club, and I said to the girls, I said, this agent said, go put on your own show, so why don't we do our own show? So we wrote our own show, and we each chipped in $25 a night for the rehearsal hall. We wrote what we were going to do. We invited every agent, producer, director.
And they came?
They came.
See, that's odd, because people still do that. They put on their own show to get agents, but rarely do they actually come.
They came. They came because the rehearsal club. We called it the Rehearsal Club Review.
Yeah.
And we sent out a postcard saying, you know, you're always telling people to, you know, let us know when you're in something. Well, we're in something. Come see us, and this postcard is your ticket. So come see us, and yeah.
And so you got an agent from that? So then did you get the Gary Moore show very quickly after that?
No, it took about 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I did summer stock. I got summer stock out of this at Green Mansions in the Adirondacks. And that summer, I worked with Artie Johnson and Bob Dishy. We were all starting out. Sheldon Harnick and Adams and Strauss. We were all new, and we were all together that summer at Green Mansions. And then the following summer, I went to Tamiment and worked there.
Yeah. And then you had this moment where you, this very defining moment in your career where you sang this song, I lost my head
I made a fool of
I
myself.
made a fool of myself over John Foster Dulles, which is a very obscure reference. You know?
Yeah.
And where were you, and how did that all happen?
Well,
that was your big break, am I
That
right?
was one of,
Your
I
first
met, when I was doing summer stock, I met a young man named Ken Welch. And he was a special material writer and coach. And he approached me and said he would like to work with me. And so I used to go and he would play auditions for me, and I would take all of my tip money from Susan Palmer's and pay him $10 in dimes. You know, it was $10 an hour. And so I just, you know, and we would work. And I got a chance to appear at the Blue Angel nightclub. And you do a 20-minute act. That was it. There were 4 people, and each person would do 20 to 30 minutes in the evening. And Ken wrote the act. And at that time, that was 1957, when John Foster Dulles was the Secretary of State. And he was aptly named. He was kind of a dull person, you know, very. And, you know, not much personality at all. And there were a lot of jokes about him and so forth. And Kenny came up with this idea about writing an opening number for me about a young girl. Oh, and this was the Elvis Presley craze. You know, in 57, with everybody going ape over Elvis Presley. Wouldn't it be funny if there was this young girl who was doing that over John Foster Dulles? Okay. And it was a wonderful piece of material, and I opened with it at the Blue Angel, and Jack Parr asked me to come on his show, and I did it, and it blew the roof off.
Gary Moore show came after that, right?
Yeah.
And then you were a huge hit on the Gary Moore show for many years. How many years were you on Gary
I was
Moore?
on about 3.5, 4 years, yeah.
Did you have fun with that?
Yeah.
He seemed like a sweetheart,
Gary
was he?
was one of the nicest human beings who ever drew a breath on this earth.
What did he do, though? I could never figure out what he did. I'm serious.
He called himself the world's greatest pointer. that he could, even better than Ed Sullivan.
Yeah.
And he actually he started out as a sidekick to Jimmy Durante on radio.
Oh, like a straight man?
No, Jimmy called him Junior, and Gary could do fast patter and so forth.
I see. So he was a comedian.
He was a comedian, but then he became kind of an MC and so forth. And so when he got the Gary Moore Show, he kind of did sketches, but he was never, the funny one.
Yeah.
And so what he would do, many times we'd be at the table reading a script, and the writers had written some stuff for Gary, and he'd say, no, that's too funny. Give it to Carol or give it to Durward.
Oh, Durward Kirby.
Yeah, and he would say, no, it'd be funnier coming out of their mouth than mine.
A giver.
A total giver. And see, he said, look, they're going to say the Gary Moore Show was great. And so it was total sharing with everybody.
That's a very unusual trait. Steve Allen has that ability. He gave me my first break, Steve, and he was very, very generous. And even Jerry Seinfeld has recognized that let everybody else be funny around you, and you're going to be the big star.
You bet. That's what I learned. I learned that from Gary, and so with our show.
And you were very generous on your show. Everybody was funny on your show.
Everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even people that, like Lyle Waggoner was very funny on that show, who was really just a gorgeous guy who knew how funny he was.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm jumping around, but Vicki Lawrence came into your life. You mentioned you had a younger sister living with you in California.
I brought her back to live with me in New York.
Oh yeah, what was her name?
Christine.
Yeah. Is she in the business?
No.
She's not.
No.
But then you wanted somebody on the Carol Burnett Show who was a little younger
we were
going
to do this little kind of like a sketch within the variety show not based on truth, but it was just that I would be married and it was almost like, say, let's do a honeymooner segment or this or that,
Like a sitcom within the show.
Within the show, yeah. And so we'd do, based on just having a baby sister and being married to Harvey and so forth. So
how did you find Vicki?
Vicki wrote me a fan letter, and we were going to do our show. We had not started yet, and I was pregnant with my second daughter, and we had been this was December of 1966, and we were going to start the show in the fall, and so we were looking for somebody, but we hadn't advertised it. And so Vicki was 17 years old, and she wrote me a fan letter that found its way to my house. She sent it to CBS, and it found its way there. And I got it, read it. I was about 14 months pregnant. I mean, I was out to here. I got this letter, and and I was hot, angry. I wanted the baby, and I read this letter, and it was very sweet. And she said, everybody says, I remind them of you, and she sent a newspaper article, and it was a picture. Said she was a member of this Young Americans group, which was a singing, had a choir, and that they all maintained a B average. She played instruments, so forth. And then it said they were going to do a show she was going to be vying for the title of Miss Fireball of Inglewood. And I looked at it, and the contest was that night, the day I received the letter. So I thought, And I said to my husband, Joe, I said, we're going to go to Inglewood tonight. And he said, what for? I said, to see the Miss Fireball contest. And
this is Inglewood, California.
Inglewood, California.
Because we have one here.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And he said, you what? I said, I'm pregnant. I want to get out of the house. And I said, there's this letter here from this girl. I said, I don't know. Let's just go. And he said, well, maybe you should call her or something. So I looked in the paper, and it said her father's name was Howard Lawrence in Inglewood. So I got the operator on the phone. I said, got the number. And I wanted to make sure that it was okay with her if we came. Ring, telephone was ringing, and her mother picked up. She said, hello. I said, is this Mrs. Lawrence? She said, yes. I said, is Vicki there? She said, who may I say is calling? I said, Carol Burnett. I got her letter. Vicki! gets on the phone and says, "Hi, Marcia."
She didn't believe it.
No. I said, "Vicki?" She said, "Yeah." I said, I got your letter today. She said, "Oh." I said, and my husband and I were thinking of coming to see the contest tonight. Do you feel okay with that? Sure. So we went down, saw her. She happened to win the contest. And so we kept her in mind. And that's how it happened.
What an amazing story for Vicki.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Miss Fireball.
Oh. So there you are in the middle of this show. How many kids do you have now? You have
3
all together now, but at that point you had 2?
Mm-hmm. I'm pregnant with Aaron our first year, so then I was with
Aaron
my
was
third
your
one.
first child.
No, Carrie was my
Carrie.
first, then Jody, and then on the first season, I discovered I was pregnant with Aaron.
Uh-huh. Carrie, I met Carrie on The View.
Yes.
She's in showbiz now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So's Aaron.
Aaron is also.
Aaron's a disco diva.
Oh.
White bread woman gives birth to disco diva.
And what's the other girl doing?
Jody is a producer, and she's actually wants to be like Sherry Lansing, and I think she could own a studio one day. Yeah, she's terrific.
Was it hard to have a career and children? That must have been tough.
Not really. What we learned from Gary, from the Gary Moore Show, how to do a show and have a life. Our show, our show was 11 years in the running, and it was like having a part-time job. I never worked more than 30 hours a week.
How'd you do that?
Well, it was organized. We'd come in on Monday, and the kids would be in school already, and we'd be there at 10 o'clock, have script reading, do a little bit of sketch rehearsal, and I'd be home by 3 on Monday. Tuesday, same thing. Wednesday, costume fittings, then a run through Wednesday afternoon. Thursday, 2 o'clock I would go in for blocking on camera. 2 to 6 blocking, we'd have orchestra rehearsal, and then go home. Friday was our day for the show. We'd tape 2, and the kids would come and see the dress rehearsal. We scheduled it so that we had Christmas, 2 weeks at Christmas off, school schedule.
Yeah.
Week at Easter, and all of our summers off.
That was handy that your husband was running the show too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes, Joe was my boss on the Gary Moore Show. He produced the Gary Moore Show.
That's where you met him.
That's how I met him. Yeah. So that's how Gary's show was run, and we got a lot of the same writers, a lot of the same production staff. When we started our show, everybody moved out from New York, so we had the same nucleus of people. In fact, many of the same dancers and singers moved out. Yeah. So I've known some of those people for 40 years.
Wow.
And still very close.
So you were working with your husband. Is that fun to do?
Yeah,
It is?
we were very good with that. We wouldn't bring the marriage to work, and we didn't bring the work home. So it worked great. We were home every night, with the exception of Friday nights for dinner, 6 o'clock with the kids. Yeah.
I have a couple of quotes here that I just thought were interesting. It says, one of them was, this is about comedy. If you get 30% of the audience laughing, you're home free. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, I just think, say you're doing something and there are 10 people in the audience, and if 3 people start laughing,
It moves.
it moves. Yeah, it's contagious. Yeah.
Well, when I first started, I used to always see the 1 or 2 that were not laughing. And that used to make me crazy.
Yeah.
And then
we do putting it together, sometimes, because Steve Sondheim, face it, isn't Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky. And so, some of those songs they're heavy, and you really have to pay attention.
Yeah.
And if people are coming to see the show and not quite knowing that, sometimes they just glaze over.
Yeah.
And a couple of times I look down and they're asleep.
The theater is like a big coffin sometimes, isn't it?
Well, we've had some audiences where we say it's an oil painting.
Definitely.
Yeah, and
But I used to see the ones who were not laughing, and then I realized that they were just staring at me or something, or their minds were. It didn't have that much to do with me.
We say they're smiling very hard.
Yeah. Or they'd say later. They'd say, "Oh, you were so funny," and then you say, "Well, you weren't laughing." Oh, I was laughing internally. Yeah.
Doesn't help.
Who needs it?
No.
Then I got another one here from somebody who said about you, I don't know, Burnett's warm, easygoing personality belies an ambitious nature. You think that's true? I got that out of an article I read about you.
Who wrote that?
I don't know. It was just in an article. I don't think it's a bad thing. You don't like that quote?
Well,
Ambition, there's nothing wrong with ambition.
No, there isn't, but that sounds negative.
Does it?
Don't you think?
No, I think that...
And ambitious, like, out of my way, you know?
No, but they're not saying you're cutthroat. They're just saying that it's almost like it's discordant that a person who's warm and friendly and outgoing would also, be driven.
Of course you're ambitious, or you wouldn't be doing what you're doing.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But it's funny how ambition makes a bad feeling.
Well, also, too, I think there's a connotation about women.
Being ambitious,
which
it's
means,
unseamly.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, it's
getting better, though, folks. You
think so?
I hope so.
Gloria Steinem's going to be on tomorrow night on something with Leslie Stroll. I just saw a soundbite, and she said women have not gotten it. We still haven't gotten it right yet. We still don't have everything that we need. No. So we'll see that tomorrow. Another thing about the business that was interesting, I went to see this movie Get Bruce, which is a movie about Bruce Vilanch.
Oh, yeah?
And Bruce Vilanch is a comedy writer.
Yeah.
He writes for Bette Midler and Whoopi Goldberg and a lot of different people.
I've done some of his stuff when, on award shows, he'll write some stuff.
Yes, he writes the Oscars sometimes, I think. Okay. So anyway, there's a part in the movie where he says that in order to be a big star, you have to be completely focused on yourself and nothing else. Do you agree with that?
No.
You don't? Mm-mm. It seems like the people that he was talking about, like Bette Midler and Whoopi and those people, are big stars.
Well, they're very big stars, but I find Bette being very focused on her family.
Yes. Well, maybe now. Maybe she
yeah,
was
well,
at
maybe
one
when
time.
you're starting out, before you have the family, sure.
He makes it sound like all a bunch of big egomaniacs.
No,
and
and Whoopi is very warm, and so I don't find that.
She's very, very lovely. Yeah. And then here's another quote that I like. Plastic surgery, I don't know what you think about that, but you say no liposuction because the word suction is so yucky. I found these in quotes in articles about you.
I never said that, but I'll say I did. That's kind of funny.
Do you have anything you want to say about plastic surgery? You do?
Sure. Years ago, Jody, my daughter, had an underbite. And so she wanted to get, she didn't want to have braces because it would have taken her about 4 or 5 years in braces to fix it. Right. So she opted to go we took her to this oral surgeon, and he said she's going to have her jaw operated on. And he looked at me and he said, Mrs. Hamilton, we can certainly fix your bite too, because I had no chin.
Well, thank you for sharing. You didn't even ask him.
No, but I kind of liked it. And because I had no chin. I mean, I was very weak chin, and I had, this major overbite. And this was about, I had just done Annie, the movie. And so we went back to Honolulu, and that's where this was. And so I went to the oral surgeon. I said, well, what would it entail? And he said, well, it's just cutting in here and just pulling this out, because we could never afford braces when I was a kid to fix my bite. Pulling out and attaching some little metal hooks in the gums here. Phew, nothing. I said, do it. Great. I always wanted a chin. So he operated, and he operated on my daughter, so everything was peachy. Now I'm healing. I'm in Hawaii, where we lived at the time. I received a phone call from Ray Stark, who produced Annie. And he said, Carol, we're going to reshoot.
Oh, no.
The Easy Street scene. So we're going to fly Tim Curry back from England and Bernadette Peters out from New York. And will you come over from? I said, well, Ray, I just had this oral surgery and I have a chin now and everything. He said, oh, listen, with that Miss Hannigan drag on, nobody's ever going to notice or anything. I said, fine by me. So flew back, got to California, and John Huston directed that production of Annie. So they said, well, don't worry about it because it's not going to be from picture to picture. It'll just be that scene. So, nobody will notice with all this stuff. So we get on the set, and John Huston said, well, I think what we'll do is we'll take it from when Carol ran into the closet to get Annie's locket. I will pick it up when she's running out of the closet with the locket. So, yeah, 2 months ago I ran into the closet with no chin. You know, I'm gonna come right out, you know. And I went up and I said, Mr. Houston, he said, yes, darling. And I explained that to him. And he thought for a minute and he said, well, just come out looking determined.
No, it's a work.
I swear, nobody notices. You know?
What a brilliant direction.
I wasn't great.
But that was, so that's you had this thing, you wanted to correct it.
Yeah.
What do you think about all the surgery that goes on in the business? Everywhere.
You mean
now.
plastic surgery?
Yeah, plastic surgery.
I think anything that's going to make you feel better, go for it.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Don't you think, though, that it makes everybody look similar?
I don't think I look like anybody.
No, but this is different.
Yeah.
This was different.
Yeah.
This was to correct
But
people with, lots of facelifts, nose jobs,
Oh, well,
eye
then,
jobs.
if they look like they've been through a wind tunnel, you're
Yeah.
No. It's called nip and tuck time, which is just kind of, and.
But, we were talking about British actors before. I don't get the feeling that British actors do this. I don't get the feeling that they get all that surgery. Am I wrong?
I have no idea.
Because, I mean,
I don't know.
just Vanessa Redgrave's been on the show, and Lynn, and
maybe
Judi Dench. They don't go for it.
I think maybe it's because it's not that important over there as it is stressed here.
Why, do you think?
Youth.
The youth-oriented society we live in? And I also think that older women get parts there. I don't think that if you look older there, there are millions of parts that you can do. Their scripts call for all different ages. It doesn't seem the same here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I have other quotes of yours. Do you mind my throwing these at you?
Not at all.
Okay.
I love the liposuction. I never said that, but I'll take credit.
Okay. This is another one I found. For the longest time, you say, I was Miss Goody Two-Shoes who never let anyone see her curse, get angry, or cry. It took me until now to realize that it's okay to cry and get angry and say the word shit in front of people. It took me until now to realize that I don't have to be perfect. Why did it take you until now, and how did you change it?
I don't know. I grew up. When I was a little girl, I thought if I was good, the world would be okay.
So much control you would have, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then realize, that's not the case. And sometimes when you people please, I mean, that's the worst thing in the world. That's a disease. People.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
If it's excessive, I guess.
Totally. And it's really nice when you can learn that no can be a complete sentence.
Yeah.
And that you can make your yeses as nice as your nos. That's it. I used to say yes to everything because I wanted to be liked. I wanted people to think I was a really good, easy, wonderful person. And then I would wind up hating myself for getting myself in all of those binds.
And resenting other people, probably, too.
Yeah, and all of that. And so now, I'm able to say, I would really love to do that, but I'm sorry I can't. And no, but I'm not God, and I'm not going to kill him by saying no.
Yeah. I don't notice that people who are mean and bitchy are less happy than people who are nice.
But you don't have to be mean and bitchy to stand up for yourself.
I realize that, but I mean, I'm with you. I like people to like me. I don't want people to dislike me.
Well, you're likable, but you're also strong.
Well, you have to be strong, but there are people who are just like really nasty in this business, and they go very far.
Well, but I don't think anybody who's really nasty, really, honest to God, I don't think they're happy.
Oh, well, I don't know if they're happy.
No, but you see, the whole point about living is to be happy, I think.
You think that's it?
Yeah,
that's
I do.
The real thing?
Yes, I do.
It's not to be rich.
Rich and happy.
Okay. Can I talk about your marriage a little to Joe Hamilton? You report that, You say that in one of the articles, or maybe in your book. I read that both, and I surmise that both you and Mary Tyler Moore, I interviewed her also, have a very similar story in that both of you report that you didn't confront the problems in your marriage. There's an interesting situation. You're divorced from Joe right now, right? And that burying things under the rug and hoping that they would go away. It's interesting to me that the two of you said the same thing. And you both strike me very similarly in that you're both so fun and up and people pleasers, both of you.
Yeah.
And does this
well,
go
we
along?
both married very strong men who were producers.
Right.
And who had, I don't.
And you worked with both.
And we both. And
of
Mary
you.
worked with Grant. And
Yeah.
I worked with Joe, and he was the boss, and I didn't want to tread on that. Maybe it was the era in which we were born and raised.
Possibly.
Yeah. And there were times when we would do our show. And Joe would say, "Well, why don't you come in and have a meeting with the writers and stuff about the script?" Now, I would see a sketch, I would look at it, and it really was awful. And I was so afraid to say, "This stinks." And or this doesn't
to
work,
say
or
that, yeah.
and I would say, I just really don't know how I'm going to be able to do that. I just don't know if I could. I was like, there was no. So Joe took over and would say, this isn't it, guys, and so forth. But I took a back seat, and then I would just come in and do what I had to do to be, the comedian. Yeah. And
well, I can understand that because why not have somebody? Everyone has a manager who's the who's the pit bull.
That's true.
And
but
so
I never wanted to step on his authority or his toes.
If you could roll that tape back, though, where you're in the meeting with the writers, would you have handled it differently? What would you
Today
do now?
I would.
What would you say? How would you do it?
I would make my nose as nice as my yeses, and I would try to just be honest, not blunt, not mean or nasty, but just to say what I felt. I just never could get it out.
Yeah. Did you have anything with the Stephen Sondheim thing? Because I know Kathy Lee, who's taking, doing the show on Tuesday nights, told us on The View that she had to take a change of word because she would not use the name of the Lord in vain. So she changed the word God, damn, to the F word. And what? So that's what she did. She didn't have a problem with the F word, but she doesn't want to blaspheme, etc. Now, so what I'm saying here is, she apparently said to Stephen Sondheim, "Look, Stephen, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it." Would that have been hard for you to do something like that? Is that
not today?
No, not today.
I would say what
You could do it
I was
today.
able to say what I was comfortable with because we did this show out in Los Angeles, and there was a number that I was doing, which is a wonderful song called "Who's That Woman," but it just wasn't working, and they kept wanting me to do it and forcing me to do it. Finally, I just said, "I'm not going to do this anymore." Now, 20 years ago, I would have gone out and done it and been miserable.
Yeah, but you would have been good.
I don't know.
You would have been good. But I mean, I was also talking about, this is very interesting to me, about how you developed this assertive personality over the years. It's great.
Well, less being, a doormat. I don't know how assertive it is, but I'm not a doormat anymore.
Yeah. No, it's the opposite of a doormat, is to be assertive. But I was talking about your relationship with the men. That Mary said that she never would say to him, the way, "Oh, Mr. Grant," to her husband. She basically did not confront him. Were you in that also? Because when I was married, I used to confront him all the time, and that's why I'm divorced. So it's the opposite.
I don't know. Maybe no. I was raised around people who confronted. And so I think I became the other way.
Yeah, I say. Oh, you got shy about doing something that looked bad to you as a child.
I never yelled. My kids never saw me angry, which I think was a mistake.
You think that was a mistake with the children?
Sure, because if they got angry, they thought something was wrong with them because Mom never got mad. Mom never...
She's the good one. We're the bad ones.
Exactly. So I always buried stuff, and it's not healthy.
Yeah. In fact, you said, another quote of yours, you said, "A therapist once told me, is this correct? Treat your teenagers like outpatients from a mental hospital and don't take anything personally."
That's right.
Was that good advice, do you think?
Fabulous advice, because it was John Bradshaw. Do you know?
Yes.
Who John
He's terrific.
That was John. Yeah, John.
Uh-huh.
He has a series called The 8 Stages of Man, starting with infancy up through, childhood, puberty, middle age, old age, death. So on. And the one thing, when he got to teenagers, that's what he said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Treat them like outpatients.
Treat your teenagers as if they are outpatients from a mental hospital. Don't take anything personally, because they're nuts. They're just nuts. And it's temporary. It'll be fine.
You've been through some hard times with your kids, I know, from reading about them. But they seem okay now.
They are terrific.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah. Carrie and I have written a play based on my grandmother, my mother, and growing up in Hollywood, and it is going to be produced.
You're going to both be in it?
No.
You're going to have actors play you?
Yeah.
Oh, not like Sophia Loren, who played herself.
No.
In
no.
Her
I'd
life
play
story.
Sophia Loren, but I wouldn't.
Yeah, I think you would be great. Well, at this point in this, I'd like to open this up to the audience, if you'd like, so that we can have some input, some questions for Carol. There they are. Gentlemen, you do it.
Yeah.
Carol will repeat the question,
I'll repeat the question. Yeah. Yes, I directed Once Upon a Mattress at UCLA. It was terrific. It was really a hoot to work with those kids, and it was my first time directing a musical comedy. And of course, to do the one that I was in was I certainly knew it very well, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it tremendously, and the kids were terrific. Yeah. Yes, sir. You waited your whole life to ask me. You want a kiss? Well, how do we do this? Yeah, sure. Okay.
They're wacky, this audience. She likes to know your name before she kisses you.
I gotta tell, I sometimes go around the country and I do Q&As, and so there was a young man who asked for a kiss. It was his birthday, and I said, okay, come on up, and give him a kiss and everything. He was 25 years old or something like that, and he sat back down. A few more Q&As, and then this man raised his hand over here, and I said, yes. He said, it's my birthday too. He said, I'm 40 today, and he said, I would like a kiss. He said, I also find you very sexy. I said, get up here. So he came up, and we're kidding around and everything. And I said, so hi, and he said, hi. I said, what's your name? He said, Bob. I said, Bob, have you ever thought in terms of an older woman? And we're doing the shtick, the bit and everything. And he kind of started to get embarrassed. Anyway, I hugged him, we gave him a little kiss on it. He started to leave, and for some reason I grabbed his sleeve again. I said, so Bob, tell me, are you involved? And he kind of blushed. He said, yes. I said, oh, how so, Bob? He said, I'm a priest.
You see?
Scott, yeah.
Any other questions for Carol?
Next to Scott there, yeah. Susan Egan was in putting it together when we did it in L.A. Ruthie Henschel is doing that role now. Susan is terrific, and yes, I have a scholarship at UCLA for the musical comedy department, and Susan was one of the recipients, and that's when I first met her. Yeah, she's wonderful. She's in Cabaret now. Yeah, she's terrific. Yeah, yes, in the blue. I really want to concentrate on writing. I've always written, and it's kind of, I like doing that very much, yeah. Yes?
Can I give you flowers because I love you so much?
Oh, maybe afterward? Oh, now? Sure, okay. Is it okay?
Sure,
okay,
I don't care. Whatever.
No.
He fell. Did you see him? He fell.
Any more gifts? Just kidding. See? Yeah. Oh, in the back there. Yeah. Yes, I did. I paid the $1,000 back 5 years to the day, and when I never heard from him, I sent it with certified mail and everything, and then. When we were doing our show, his wife called us about the third or fourth year that we were doing the show, and she said, we'd love to see you. They live down in the San Diego area, and if you're ever down this way, so Joe and I drove down, and we had lunch with them. And she told me that there were times when my name might have come up, or if I was on television and they were around other people, he just kind of smiled, winked at his wife, never said a word. Never said a word.
Is he still alive?
No, he died a few years ago. Yeah. Yes, sir. Durward lives in Florida. He's retired and he lives in Florida. Yeah. Yes. Carl, I love working with Carl Reiner. He is a dear, dear man. No, we don't, I don't call him on the phone or anything, but whenever I see him, I kiss him.
Do you hang out with any of the people from the show at all?
Conway and Harvey.
Tim. Oh,
yeah. But you have to be really careful. When you go, you really, it's dangerous to have dinner with Conway unless you know the Heimlich maneuver.
He was probably the funniest thing going on in those years, wasn't he?
That man, you never knew what he was going to do. Never knew.
And he always cracked up Harvey. Harvey had no control
his
whatsoever.
His goal in life was to destroy Harvey.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. He would do the damnedest things. He did a thing once, this is in real life. Yeah. Years ago, his first wife, he was married to a woman who played bridge. Marianne, and she was so good, we used to say she had a black belt in bridge. And she would travel all over and play, and this one time she told Conway, she said, we're going to go to a party in Pasadena with all of my bridge cronies. And Tim, he said, Marianne, I don't want to go because it's all going to be bridge talk, and she said, come on, we're going. So they went to this very posh party at this mansion in Pasadena, California. So, and true enough, it was all her bridge cronies there with their husbands and wives and so forth. They didn't know who Tim was.
Really?
Because they were so into bridge.
Yeah.
So they're sitting there and they're having dinner at this big mahogany table, with the wine glasses on. Conway's going, oh God, when is this going to be over? And finally, dessert was about to be served. He excused himself and he went into the powder room.
Yeah.
And he's washing his face thinking, well, we'll soon be going home. And he opened up, this is a true story, he opened up the medicine cabinet and he's looking at the contents. And he finds a jar of Vaseline and a box of Q-tips. And he opens up the Vaseline and he takes it and he sticks this Vaseline, dots all over. And he takes the Q-tips and he breaks them and he sticks the Q-tip. So he's got all this wood, sticks of wood coming out of his face.
So he went back.
Goes back to the room. They're all talking, and they stop talking. And his wife goes, oh, for God's sake. And there's this dead silence. And Conway says, the Q-tip box exploded.
He was wacky.
They were divorced shortly after that. True story.
Really? She didn't go for it?
No.
Wrong wife.
Wrong wife. He's got one now.
Before we go, another question. I wanted to ask you about the sketches you used to do as Eunice, which I thought were brilliant and inspired. Very funny and very poignant, the whole thing. Who thought of those?
Dick Clare and Jenna McMahon wrote those. And what is really interesting about those sketches is that there was never one joke they didn't write a joke in those sketches. Those were all character driven.
Yeah.
And it was the way we portrayed it and did it that got the laughs, really.
Right.
But it was all, it was so close to the bone. And when I read it, I automatically went to that accent because it conjured up Texas to me and so forth. And so we got the sketch on a Monday, the first one that we ever did, and we did a run through on Wednesday, and we're talking like this and everything. And then Dick and Jenna said we had not written it that way. They had written it based out of Chicago or something,
Right.
But it just hit home that way. And I found people who say, there's a manicurist who's Russian that I have in California. She's that family. It's just like my family in Russia.
It was.
Yeah,
There were nasty, rejecting mother. She was horrible.
Oh, awful. We one time, Maggie Smith was on the show, and we did one of those. And Maggie was a school teacher, and she had the three of us, Eunice and Mama and Ed, come to talk to her about Bubba, our son, who was a bully. And then, of course, the sketch reveals that the reason Bubba is a bully is because he comes from these horrible people. And so this one afternoon, I don't know who had the idea, but we were in rehearsal, and we said, let's not do it with the accents. Let's just, as an acting exercise, do this as a scene. There wasn't one laugh. It was devastating. Devastating.
It's interesting because it was so truthful.
Yeah. Brilliantly written.
I think it's on rerun somewhere. Isn't it on Nickelodeon?
I think we've shelved it for a bit, but what we're hoping to do is we're trying to get the rights so that we can release about 30 of the original 1 hours, which would also include all of the musical numbers.
That would be great.
Which they've never been seen since the first time.
Have you ever talked about doing the sketches now, at these later years, coming back and doing another, like a replay of it as you are now?
No, we have not.
You couldn't do it?
I don't think so. I think,
interesting.
it might be interesting, but I don't know if people would go for it. Sometimes there are things that are in people's memories and they're much better than trying to leave it alone.
It really was brilliant.
Yes. Thank you.
Really is. Could you speak a little bit, or a couple of hours if you want, on the fact that I feel you and Lucille Ball, I think you worked with her art.
I worked with Lucille Ball, yes, yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
If you could speak a few moments, if you might, as two redhead pillars of comedy.
Two redheaded pillars of comedy. Neither one of us is natural, but Lucy was one of the, she was kind of a mentor for me. I remember when I opened in Once Upon a Mattress off Broadway, and she was there the second night. I have never been so scared in my life. I didn't know her, and I was peeking through the curtain. I saw this redhead, in the second row, and she was absolutely incredible. She came backstage, sat in my dressing room, talked to me for about 45 minutes, and she said, whenever there's ever anything, she called me kid, if there's ever anything you need from me, call me. And so a few years later, Joe and I had this opportunity to do a special for CBS if we got a major star to be on it. And Joe said, why don't you call Lucy? I said, I can't do that. I didn't know her that well. He said, but she said to, and we really wanted the job. And so, I dialed her office, got her, and I said, hi, Lucy, it's Carol Burnett. Hey, kid, how you doing? And I said, I got this opportunity to do a special for CBS, and before I got the rest of the sentence out, she said, when do you want me? And she was a guest on the show. It was with Zero Mostel and Lucy. It was called Carol Plus Two, and we worked together. Then I did her show a few times, and then she did my show. She was... talk about men. She was talking about the men. We took a dinner break once from my show during orchestra rehearsal, and we went over to the farmer's market and had dinner together. And she said, it's great that you've got Joe working for you and for the show. She said, I miss the Cuban. She said when Desi did the show, she said, all I had to do was come in and be Lucy.
Yeah.
And he he worked on the scripts. He worked with the writers. He told them what to do. He had the whole thing. She said, we got divorced. And I had to sink or swim without him.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I went in, I didn't know how to deal with the writers. And she said, I was so worried about what to do. And she said, and I realized I had to do something. She said, and that's when they put the S on the end of my name.
Balls.
Yeah.
She got it.
Yeah.
Final- yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Hi.
This is going back to Eunice.
Uh-huh. Eunice.
Favorite sketches from the show was where Eunice had the acting teacher who was played by the wonderful.
Oh, Eunice had an acting yes, with Madeline Kahn. When Madeline Kahn, yeah.
Poor
Oh,
Madeline.
she was, well, to share with Madeline was absolutely wonderful. Just terrific. We had a great time together. And I wish you could see the entire show, because we also did a takeoff at the end of the show on Nelson and Jeanette, and she was Jeanette McDonald because she had a beautiful soprano
Yeah.
voice. She was a trained singer. And what a loss. What a loss.
Oh, it's devastating. We were shocked.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Terrible thing.
That was so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, Julie Andrews, yeah. Oh, thank you.
Has Julie lost her voice? What's
No. What has happened was she had, I don't know about losing it. Yeah, I shouldn't say anything because I don't know.
Yeah.
But when I have spoken with her, I mean, it was quite raspy 3 years ago. Very, and she was supposed to be okay in about 6 weeks, and it has not happened. She's getting better. I'm hoping that she will totally
Yeah.
get her voice back. It's not back yet, no. No, as far as singing goes, no, not
Yeah.
yet. They're talking about maybe doing a play, but I don't know if I want to do a play or not. I would love to work in something with Julie, but as far as doing 8 shows a week, I don't think so. But we were talking about someday doing another special. The first special we did was in 1962 at Carnegie Hall, and we talked about men and our careers and whole thing. Then the second one was in about 10 years later, and we talked about our husbands and our children. The third one was about 12, 13 years after that. We talked about our grandchildren and menopause. So we figure, we'll just sit in a couple of rocking chairs and discuss Metamucil. The whole 9 yards. My favorite of the Sondheim songs? Oh. Making light of Sondheim?
Well, he's not heavy. He's not so heavy. He's not.
Yeah, well, he's got some pretty.
He's very witty.
Yeah, very, very witty. I wouldn't know how to make light of what he's doing. In putting it together, I think I like anything with George Hearn. I'm loving doing Country House. I mean, that was the toughest thing to learn.
Which one was that?
How about a country house? You want to get a country house?
Yeah.
Was, I mean, it was
Complicated.
very much more complicated than not getting married.
But the song "Lovely" that you do, Carol
Yes.
puts a hilarious spin on that. It's very funny.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's fun to do. And I enjoy Could I Leave You? Because that's an acting piece. That's really fun, and I try it different ways each night.
You do also the Ladies Who Lunch,
Yeah.
which is a very
Yeah.
well. Elaine Stritch
Yeah.
basically made that famous.
Yeah.
I wonder how it feels to follow in someone's footsteps. We remember Elaine doing
Yeah,
that. That
yeah.
must have been. That's hard, isn't it?
Well, no.
I mean, you were completely different, and you
yeah,
had your
totally
own original
different.
take.
Well, the thing is,
which was
it's
great.
a different character
Yeah,
in
yeah.
putting it together than it is as Joanne in Ladies Who Lunch.
Right.
So this one is more pitiful. Joanne is more of a driving
I see.
force in company. Yeah. Yeah. This one's more self-pitying, I think. Yeah. Way back, yeah. How do you handle being discouraged? Well, you get discouraged and then you get right back up again. That's the thing, and that's what I think helps you to get the work. If you stay discouraged, you're not going to get anywhere. And it's that one person's opinion, so what the hell do they know? Yeah.
I just want to say as a comment that your show is wonderful and you look beautiful every single week in your monologue. And you still look beautiful.
Thank you.
How do you keep that fit yourself?
Thank you. I don't eat after the show. So I work it off. When we do the show, I eat at 5 o'clock every night, and then I do the show, and then I don't eat afterwards. So you have the calorie, you burn it.
Every skinny person always says that don't eat after 6 o'clock. I like to eat after 6 o'clock. I'm starving at 7 o'clock. And then you have the whole night. What are you going to do with the whole night?
I go to bed.
It's the sleeping diet.
It's a sleeping diet. Totally. I mean, even when I'm not working, I like to eat. To me, dinner at 7:30 is late. It really is. I like to eat at like 6:30. I'm really just a farmer at heart.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, a cabaret act? No, I have not ever thought it. I don't like to be alone. I don't like to be up there alone. I love to be with people and working with people and being a character. It would just scare the heck out of me to do, just get up there and be myself. Well, thank you. Thank you. Yes?
I'm a huge fan, and I'd like to speak a little bit about Moon Over Buffalo. Saw the documentary.
Yeah. Yeah.
It kind of came off, it wasn't a great experience.
That's right. I don't want to talk about it that much, except.
Explain what he said, though.
He was talking about Moon Over Buffalo, how it was not really. You saw the documentary Moon Over Broadway and how it looked like it was kind of a strange experience. It really was. I felt that we were kind of sat on a lot and not given enough rein to do what we do. And I had no idea what they felt until I saw the documentary. I had no idea they were worried about me.
What were they worried about?
They just, I don't know. They at one point, which really, shows after the first rehearsal, and the writer and the director are talking, and the writer is upset with the first rehearsal, and the director said, "Well, she's television."
Oh boy!
I had no idea they thought that.
Really? You were great in that. I saw that.
Well, we got better after they left us alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You and Philip Bosco. You were a great team.
Yeah.
I've seen everything you've done too.
Yeah. Oh, on the balcony. Yeah.
I see you years ago when Fade Out, Fade In. I went to see you backstage. You told me you felt sorry for me that I looked like you.
Oh, I didn't. I felt sorry for you that you looked like me.
I took a picture. You came out your robe with a towel on your head, and Carol asked me to the show, and David Cassidy was in the audience and said, "She does look like Carol." And then I followed you when you were at Carnegie Hall, and then when you did the Museum of Broadcasting. And here again, 'cause you were
Well, hi. Well, that was a dumb joke for me. I mean, I get people who, who come up and say, "I look like you." I'll always say, "Gee, I'm sorry." It's just a retort, and actually, well, many times people would raise their hand, in the audience of our show, and they think, "Guess what? Everybody tells me." Why do you think I wanted to get a chin?
Oh God. Those ladies over there.
Where are we?
Miss Burnett, I thought that your funniest skit was the night you played Mildred Fierce.
That I did. Oh, Mildred Fierce. Yeah. Yes, we did a takeoff on Mildred Pierce on our show, which was really brilliantly written. It was incredible. Harvey was Zachary Scott, and Vicki was Ann Blythe, and I was Joan, and so forth.
Excellent,
Yeah,
wonderful.
and Bob put the eyebrows on me and the shoulder pads out to here and so forth. And I got a call from Joan Crawford after that, and she said, "You gave us more production than that effing Jack Warner." She loved it.
Did she really?
Absolutely loved it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a kick.
Did you know her at all?
I met her a few times. Yeah. All three of them. All three of them. Two have been married. They're divorced, and the middle one has not been married yet. Why?
Carrie has never been married, right?
Carrie was married.
She was?
Carrie was
She
married.
seems like so young.
She's divorced. No, Carrie's the oldest.
Oh, but how old is she? She seems
Carrie's
so young to me.
36.
Really?
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
I have no
Yeah,
concept.
well, she's got that.
She's got that
yeah.
whole thing about her. right?
Please, yes. Yeah.
Sir? I'll take one more.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Well, I was there in 1956. So that was after Sid and Imogene and Danny Kaye and yeah. And although Neil Simon was a writer on the Gary Moore Show. When I was on that show, he was a junior writer, having come off a show of shows in Caesar's Hour, and he wrote "Come Blow Your Horn" while he was writing on the Gary Moore Show. Gary was, Mel Tolkien, yeah, and Arnie Rosen, yeah, wonderful writers.
You've had some great writers in your time.
Terrific.
You really have. You were
yeah.
lucky in many ways that they were around at the time.
Very.
And I think your best sketches were always movie takeoffs, except for Eunice and Mrs. Wiggins.
Well, that's because that's all I wanted to do as a kid.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was able, my life is just charmed because how many kids can grow up and have a real orchestra and real costumes and real makeup and real all of this and also, I guess the biggest thrill in my life was when Betty Grable was a guest on our show. And Lana Turner was a guest on our show. And Rita Hayworth and Gloria Swanson. Wow.
Well, your dreams came true, and we're so happy that you came and did this tonight.
Thank you,
Because
Joy.
you've given us so much pleasure over the years.
I just want to say one thing, too. Whoa. Thank you. I have to say that your show is one of my all-time favorites in the world. You guys are sensational.
We're
and
wacky.
Oh, I love it. I love that show to death.
Thank
and
you.
I'd love to be a regular someday.
I'll
That
tell
would be
Barbara. But thank you, Carol. Thank you all for coming. That was fun.